All right. So I needed to deal with a few more things on this channel before I proceed with producing other content. For whatever reason, whenever I have something to say on this channel, I gotta get it off my chest or else I can't do nothing else. And I wanted to sort of continue or elaborate on a previous point that I argued in the most recent live stream, as well as deal with this story right here. This story surfaced 2 days ago. Hate crime investigation opened after Montgomery neighborhood is vandalized.
After a Montgomery neighborhood was vandalized this weekend with racial slurs and shattered windows, we now know Montgomery police are investigating it as a hate crime. One homeowner believes it started because he refused to give someone money at a gas station. WSFA 12 News reporter Julia Avant explains.
Otis Ramos and his family recently moved to the Denali Pines neighborhood in Montgomery. He describes it as a quiet and friendly place to call home. But now, he is devastated.
Can somebody come that close to our house?
Someone spray painted vehicles and homes and even broke into this window where children sleep.
My kid was in there asleep. Right there. He was right there. He broke the window right.
He painted, or whoever did this, they painted swastikas everywhere. Just like the swastikas painted on the gun of the shooter.
Right there. So that's very dangerous.
Ramos believes the problem started when he and his wife went to this gas station down the road to get some snacks.
The gentleman went to the store, asked for some money. I'm like, I don't have no money, I paid with a card.
He says that rejection led to an argument.
And he was saying something to someone on the phone, like, or if she was by herself, I'll do something. So I asked the gentleman, hey, why you recording my wife and things like that, and like what's going on?
Ramos believes the same man was in the area in footage sent to us. It shows an unidentified man.
So this guy creeps up at about 4 o'clock in the morning, vandalizes the neighborhood, and the fact is these racists, lunatics, are becoming more and more emboldened, which is expected. It was clearly foreseen and expected by everybody around DeSantis. Listen, DeSantis has been launching an anti-black crusade. His whole platform has been based on being an overt racist. Took a page out of Donald Trump in a way, but he's much worse than Trump. His policies reflect his racist ideologies. Talking about DeSantis, whereas you couldn't find racism in the policies of Donald Trump. And to be honest with you, I'm a blue-collar working man, and I never had a problem with my employment under Trump. I did under Obama and the Democrats. Anyway, they go over how DeSantis was booed at this vigil. Okay. And this article was published in The Guardian and point out how somebody in the audience said, your policies caused this. Okay. And this guy left a manifesto. I don't even understand how DeSantis can show his face right now and expect to be taken seriously. This war on the woke. Have y'all noticed that DeSantis has never really come out and tried to distance himself from racists? I know for a fact that he's heard several of the people's belief, journalists and whatnot, people with massive platforms, famous people. He's heard people refer to him as a racist. He's never really come out to distance himself from racists. In fact, he seems to not mind. He seems to not mind. I mean, think about it. If he comes out with this, hey, war on woke, I'm waging a war on woke, you can't really call him a racist at that point, can you? Because he can say, no, I'm just against the curriculum. I'm against it being taught in the schools because it focuses on dividing people and separating people. He doesn't try to, because some of his supporters may believe that he's racist or that some things that he said is racist. He never tried to comfort those supporters of his and distance himself from racists. Instead, he seems to have embraced it. War on the woke. And whenever he's referring to woke, it's always Black history. Now, for a while after he started with this, people were saying that he was not attacking Black history. But then what did he do? He removes Black American studies from the universities. Now, by him doing that, he removed all doubt about what he was referring to as woke. He established at that point that when he refers to woke, he's talking about all history pertaining to Black Americans. The only type of history that he approves of when it comes to Black Americans is teaching Black Americans that they benefited from slavery, according to DeSantis himself. Now understand, he nor no other politician would dare get up and try to suggest that some other group benefited from concentration camps, or that any other group benefited from slavery. They always like to talk about these other groups who have been enslaved. They always like to tell Black Americans, hey, you're not the only people who've been enslaved. You know, other people have been enslaved as well. Well, where are they? Who are these people? These people who were enslaved. Ask them if they benefited from slavery. That's something they would only carry out with Black Americans. So he has this war on the woke campaign. And look at what somebody said down there. Nazis were rallying in Jacksonville, in Orlando, at Disney. Many of them flew DeSantis flags alongside swastikas, further confirming that DeSantis was fueling and speaking the narrative and talking points of who? White supremacists. And also keep in mind that Florida is like the headquarters of white supremacists as far as their organizations, these little organizations that they have. Florida is the capital, and he was appealing to that crowd. And he contributed greatly because you clearly see the hardcore white supremacists who are bold enough to bear swastikas, they're supporting DeSantis as well while bearing those swastikas. So you see the crowd that DeSantis motivates. So how could he have not contributed to this recent shooting? How could his narrative, his talking points, his approach not have contributed? How likely do you think it is that the shooter never heard of DeSantis? Very unlikely. How about that? Ask them if they benefited from slavery. So this open and overt, blatant disrespect of Black Americans speaks the mind of the most sick and deranged people in society. He's speaking on behalf. DeSantis is then speaking and acting on behalf of the most vile racists, because think of the most vile, sick racists in history, not even just in this era. Don't you think they would approve of DeSantis? Don't you think they would applaud DeSantis? Just think to yourself, the most wicked racist to ever walk this planet. Let's say Hitler. Don't you think Hitler would applaud DeSantis? And they tried to, they tried to carry it out in a covert way. Then DeSantis comes out talking about Black Americans benefited from slavery. Dude. Okay. Now, check this out. DeSantis has attempted to portray those participating in the rallies as part of a Democratic smear campaign against him. He's talking about the people who were booing, and that they were not really his backers. He said, those are no supporters of mine. But you remember DeSantis called the shooter a scumbag. Okay? And they point out that, notice how DeSantis did not say that it was racist. He did not say that it was anti-Black. He did not refer to it as white supremacy. Just has this vague, oh, he's a scumbag. Oh, he's a dirtbag. That type of vile hatred has been allowed to fester. They actually wrote this in the article. I said the same thing on the live stream. I think it was yesterday, day before yesterday. These extremists feel welcome here. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why. Yeah, it is because DeSantis is there. So I think this is pretty incredible how this guy is not, brought up on charges, really, for encouraging what resulted in a flipping terrorist attack. This is no different. And this is what white supremacists do. They carry out real bona fide textbook terrorist attacks. So if you somehow manage to speak their narrative, there's no way to defend you. There's no defending that at all. So war on the woke, that was DeSantis, that was his angle, that was his shtick. War on the woke. Everybody knew he was talking about Black history and Black Americans. And when he wanted to remove all doubt, he then attacked Black studies, Black American. Now understand, Black American studies or African American studies in the universities, they don't teach that whites are all evil and that they are all racist and carrying out racism against Black Americans. They don't teach that in ethnic studies now or Black American studies. They don't. But DeSantis removed it anyways. What does that tell you? It tells you that this has nothing to do with them believing that critical race theory or woke teaching divides America. That's not what he's against. He's not against the idea of a new curriculum dividing the different races. His problem is with the teaching of Black history, period, which is why he removed the teaching of Black history. I don't know why more people did not call this out. The whole talking point with the war on the woke, against critical race theory, which is the same thing, was that critical race theory divides people. And the real argument was that the way it was packaged, because it allegedly involved teaching white students that they are active racists who are making the lives of all black people miserable. This old weird way of so-called teaching history that did not come from Black America, mind you. It came from the same source where Black Lives Matter came from and all these other puppet organizations that come out in our name where Black Americans had nothing to do with the formation of it. Black Lives Matter has pretty much been seen as a Black American organization, yet Black Americans had nothing to do with the creation of it, and they were not the leaders of it. All of the leaders of Black Lives Matter were immigrants, and the founder and financier was a very wealthy white Jewish man. So if that was not bad enough, War on Woke, then he follows up by removing Black Studies. A very harmless, he was just making his pact with the racists and white supremacists. At that point, he wanted to reassure them that he was not speaking in vague terms. He wanted to reassure them and remind them and let everybody know exactly who he was talking about when he was talking about War on Woke. So he then removes Black Studies. He then further disrespects Black Americans by making Asian American studies mandatory. No problem with Asian American studies, but and understand, when you talk about Asian American studies, that also involves discrimination against Asians here in America. But they don't mind that. Oh yeah, you could go ahead and teach that all you want. Nobody had a problem with that dividing America. I learned that in college. They talked about, if you take ethnic studies in college, you're going to learn about other races other than Black Americans being discriminated against as well. But no problem with the teaching of Asian American studies. That was just to further disrespect Black Americans. That's why I said this is nothing but a long-held tradition of openly disrespecting and trying to dehumanize Black Americans. So, but that wasn't enough for DeSantis. He then says and puts together a group, a curriculum to teach that blacks benefited from slavery. Now, at this point, he is just spitting in our faces. He then had the nerve to turn around and say, you know what? If we are going to deal with Black American history, the only thing we want to talk about is how Black Americans benefited from slavery. Man, anybody who doesn't believe that DeSantis contributed to a lot of other racist acts, kidding yourself. But that wasn't enough either. Right? That wasn't enough either. To further make his pact, it was sort of like he was trying to prove his loyalty to the white supremacists. So he would do little things in code to reassure the white supremacists that he was on the same page as them. So he comes out and say, hey, blacks benefited from slavery. You learned some skills. And then here recently, his wife wears a jacket that says, with an alligator on it. With an alligator on it. That says, where woke goes to die. Further reassuring to his supporters that he is on the same page as them. The only black people DeSantis and his party puts a stamp of approval on are the Sambo buck dancing coonshines who would say the same crazy stuff that he says. Those lunatics on Fox News, when they dealt with this story, the first thing they brought up, what about black on black crime? What about Chicago? Now, the crazy thing about that is they teach even in the universities that that's a fallacy, that that's a deflection, that's an inappropriate response. And not only that, when other groups are racially attacked, nobody says, well, what about the Asian mafias? What about the Asian on Asian crime? Or what about the Mexican mafias down there in Mexico? Nobody does that. But it seems to be acceptable. Like I said, they make our criminal class the face of Black America, but they don't make their criminal class the face of their group. Clearly, even though our criminal class is a small minority, just like their criminal class is a small minority. Somehow it's worse when it involves us, even though we're not the ones infiltrating law enforcement and actually carrying out our insanity on targeted groups in the country. So look at all these little signals, these little codes DeSantis has been putting out here. Understand, he refused to fight the packaging of Black history. I made that argument myself, like, it's the packaging of Black history that you should have a problem with. You know, he never made an attempt to reassure people that he supported the teaching of Black history at all. And why wouldn't you? Especially as a governor. Why wouldn't you make yourself clear that you want Black history taught, that you appreciate because it's real history. It's not a specific people's history. It's the history of this country. He just doesn't want it taught at all. I mean, this is not even code language. This is overt right there in your face. Then where woke goes to die. Okay, so he didn't just try to fight the packaging of true history, because you see these liberals trying to put it in a package. Oh, it's woke. It's critical race theory. Oh, it teaches that you're an oppressor. That was their liberal partners giving them an alley-oop, giving them something absurd that did not come from Black America. You know, something that they can be outraged about. DeSantis and others, they don't fight the packaging of true history. They fight the teaching of history, period. And again, if they're going to teach history, they want to teach Black Americans, hey, let's talk about how you benefited from being enslaved. Understand, mind you, how you Black Americans benefited from having the majority of the generations of your generations in this country enslaved. Slavery took place in this country for what, some 250 years? So this country has existed under the system of slavery longer than it has freedom. and y'all want to pull out textbook and give us a lecture on how we benefited from it, you know as well as I do, that is overt, in your face disrespect, and it's intended to be disrespectful. So this guy never tried to distance himself from racists. He almost seemed to be accepting. Well, there ain't no almost. He seemed to be accepting of the title. And this is the type of thing that I'm talking about is a little more important right now. Like, we actually need to worry about our physical survival right now. You see, black people need to work together against stuff like this. You see, us ignoring people like DeSantis and not having the power to neutralize his rhetoric. This is the exact same thing that a lot of people in the Jewish community were upset with Kanye West about. They said, hey, Kanye, you're making it acceptable to disrespect Jewish people. And that will result in increased violence against Jewish people. There were people who were calling up to the radio, to Twitter spaces, literally saying that. There were Jewish people calling up. Like, hey, all this open disrespect and all this talk about how horrible Jewish people are. You people are increasing the chances. You're fueling violence against us. That's exactly what Ron DeSantis did here in this situation. So I'm going to keep an eye on Mr. DeSantis. This guy really running for president? Really? Look at the arrogance right there. Not only does he not care, he running for president on top of that. Good Lord. But this has been a probably the most overtly racist scenario to take place in this era. Is the whole existence and campaign of DeSantis, who essentially tried to projectile back to the 1800s. He basically tried to be a slavery governor, a governor straight from the era of antebellum slavery. And you see what that contributed to, and what many people believe contributed to. And just based on this alone, there's no way he can avoid this shooting being tied into his rhetoric. It took place in his state as well. Shortly after they made this revised gun law down there. Tell me what you think. That is all for this live stream.